Sure. Richard Warman, I have almost a whole chapter on him in the book. He used to work for the Human Rights Commission as an investigator by day, and by night, he became their most prolific complainer. And his friends would process his complaints, and he would win them all. And he would win money tax-free. And it was all under Section 13. And Richard Warman, a hate speech investigator, would join neo-Nazi groups, Vanguard, Stormfront, go online using nicknames, code names, Jade War, Pogue Mahone, and he would write hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of filthy, filthy things on the internet. I know a few from memory. Jews are scum. Gays are sexual deviants who are cancer on society. Police should be loyal to their race. We should have an apartheid city in Canada called Whiteville, etc., etc., etc. Hundreds and hundreds. I mean, I don't know how much time he spent in neo-Nazi drag, but it was almost as much as he spent in his real life as a hate fighter. So just to remind you, the law is against spreading hate, and that's what he was doing. And on these neo-Nazi groups, when someone would finally take the bait and say, yeah, those Jews, they're scum, snap, he'd spring the trap, haul them in, prosecute them with his buddies, and win tens of thousands of dollars. Even though he wasn't Jewish or gay, he filed the complaints and he got the bounty. And now eventually, tens of thousands of dollars. Now eventually, he left the Human Rights Commission. He now works in the Department of National Defense in their mini Human Rights Commission within the DND. He's a director of special grievances, I bet. But he's still the most prolific complainant under Section 13. In fact, most of the Section 13 complaints, in fact, all but a handful in the last 5 years have been his, which begs the question, if there's no hate out there and if you got to make the hate, maybe we can shut that down now? But here's the thing. I mean, I understand cops going undercover, but there's a lot of rules. First of all, you have to be a cop. Second of all, there's rules. If you're going after a murderer, you can't commit a murder to go after the murderer. Maybe you can do some petty crimes, sort of harmless crimes, but you don't actually do the big, like when police women pretend that they're prostitutes, they don't actually become prostitutes. They stop before but Richard Warman was doing the precise thing that he was setting out to hunt. I mean, his form of entrapment, the hate speech, was that which he claimed he was trying to fight. The Canadian Human Rights Commission is the largest publisher of hate speech in Canada, full stop. And I mean, I don't know of any other government other than Mahmoud Ahmadinejad's that actually hires people to be anti-Semitic for a living. But the Canadian Human Rights Commission does to this day. Now, by the way, they do not have an internal code of ethics, by the way. They do not have an internal affairs organization like a real police officer would do to make sure people don't get too deep in and forget which really is them and really isn't. But anyhow, about March 13th, to be precise, for the first time, he was called on it. He had entrapped someone, Jason Owendyke, and let's be honest, Jason Owendyke's a racist. None of us would like him. But I don't think a racist should be put in jail just because he's racist. Anyways, Warman prosecuted this case, and the Human Rights Commission, Human Rights Tribunal chair, did something odd. Yeah, he condemned the racist, but then he had paragraph after paragraph after paragraph talking about Warman's own conduct, calling it disreputable, disturbing, disappointing, losing in credibility. His explanations were unacceptable. He, in fact, spread hate and violated and may well have done the very thing his law. I mean, it was a stunning rebuke. And this, from the very bosom of the human rights industry, made it even all the more stunning. And this changed it from my opinion to a legal finding of fact. It is now not just an opinion, but it is the law that he is a disreputable hate monger. Just like, I mean, that's the difference between being accused and being convicted. He's not convicted of a crime, but a tribunal chair of a quasi-judicial tribunal has said, you were disreputable and you were doing bad things. That is stunning. And I hope that that marks the beginning of the unraveling of his unhappy career. By the way, he's such a turbo censor. I mean, he's suing me, of course. But he sued British Columbia libraries because they carried a book that he didn't like. And he sues so many libraries, and libraries don't have extra dough to hire lawyers, so most of them would just give up and take the book off their shelves. The Toronto Public Library has a list of banned books, and he's the guy who's banning some of them. BC, to their credit, and let me put this to you that there is some hope, BC actually passed a specific law to amend it's such that you cannot sue a library for defamation until the book has already been found to be defamatory. He was preemptively getting people to ban books just with the threat of litigation. And Gordon Campbell, so there is some hope that they'll, I mean, he remedied this. There's I call it Warman's Law, because it was built in response to his nuisance litigation. He is extremely litigious, and that's the censorship way. We were both invited to speak on various panels. I'd debate him any day. He does not like to debate, of course. He sent an email to my publisher about a week ago, basically a veiled legal threat. You bet. I haven't read the book yet, but I'm suing Ezra Levant. You better watch out you don't get dragged into it. I don't want to be crass, but being sued and censored for this book would probably be the best thing for sales I could imagine. You know what, though? The days of the Richard Warmans are numbered. First of all, you can't stop ideas in the internet age. You can't. I mean, I don't like George Galloway, and I think he raises money for terror. But put that aside. Look at the media bonanza he got. Look at David Ahenecue. You Google his name, you get 20,000 hits. Before he was charged with hate speech, I don't think he would have gotten one hit. No one paid attention to him other than his own grandkids just because they had to. Now the whole country's heard of him. Ernst Zundel actually won his false news trial at the Supreme Court, but he's turned into an international hero instead of some crank in a hard hat. I mean, these people are nobodies. They are losers. I mean, who spends their night playing make-believe being a Nazi on the internet? Frankly, if you're going to be a Nazi, I think that's a good place for you to be rather than out in the streets. I mean, these people really are losers. And glamour is about the last word I would associate with them. But by being charged by the government with hate speech under a Human Rights Act or a criminal code, all of a sudden this loser is dangerous. And the government must censor him. My ideas are so powerful that the government is after me, you know. And there is a glamour, a sexiness, a bad boy. I'm a bad boy, ladies. I mean, these utter nobodies are turned into celebrities because of it. That's what happens when you try and censor. Anyhow, here I am. After 3 years of this process, I was accused of being a hater. No, I've been acquitted of that. And one of my antagonists himself has been found to be a hater. I was accused of being un-Canadian, I suppose, since I was violating a law. I was accused of trampling on people's civil rights. But actually, now my antagonists are the ones being shown to be un-Canadian, and they're the ones being shown to violate our basic human rights, such as freedom of speech. I was the one who was supposed to be ground down, demoralized, bankrupted, turned into a sourpuss by this. I feel pretty good. And I think it's largely to the help that I didn't go bankrupt with the people here. But it's the Human Rights Commissions who are now in trouble and have to watch their budgets, and the ones who are demoralized and have had the worst PR year in their history. So it's a pretty good feeling to turn things around 180 degrees. But I don't want to grab defeat from the jaws of victory. I want to keep going until these guys are done. Well, I don't know, but I wonder how the Law Society would feel about him being a hate monger. He's a lawyer. I wonder how the Department of Defense would feel about that, because he works in their bosom, in their Special Grievances Directorate. That's their mini Human Rights Commission. He's suing me for defamation. I'm not too worried. It's a nuisance suit, but if it ever goes to trial, you know, what's his reputation worth? He's been legally found to be disreputable, disturbing, disappointing, no credibility. I mean, okay, here's $1. Yeah, and that's the thing. In real court, I'm ready for that trial. I'll get costs in real court.
But